the bystanders. Welcome to another episode of an Angel and Unicorn comic book reviews. I'm Alan the Unicorn, and with me today is Just James. La! I was a tried true favorite person in the world. We will be spoiling the books for the week, and if you haven't read, you may want to take a moment, read them before we spoil them, or we let us spoil them because we do a pretty good job of that anyways. Other than that, I think like, share, and subscribe. We'd love to have more people.
Make more friends.
Make more friends all the time. I think that's it.
Yeah.
All right. Any announcements? Anything? No.
There is this weekend's the Tulsa Pop Culture Expo. Though by the time that this is up, and
It'll be over.
you probably either went to it or didn't. And there's another con coming up in December. The Riverside Comic Expo. It's at the Sherman Miller Jewish Museum. It's December 7th.
That one. They did that one last year.
And so.
All right. Let's get right to it. You want to go first? You want me to go first?
Go ahead.
Okay. I'm going to start with Excalibur. So I got the alternate cover. I got the Jubilee cover. Otherwise, there's a different cover. There's multiple covers. So this is the new X-Men line that's coming out of the Age of X-Men and Powers of X, or Powers of 10, however anybody wants to say it or do it. And apparently I left the door open, so if one of the cats comes... Sorry. Yeah. So, anyways. So this one is the Excalibur. They're going to... It deals with... I haven't finished the Powers of X. I have two more left. And so I have one more storyline to go. And so I have... to figure out some of the stuff is not being able to figure out. Bristol's like, no, we ain't having this.
Kitty will not be deterred.
All right. So, this one they have. I'm sorry. So this one is, I guess, the island is left over. So that was the real thing. The island's still, that's part of the world. They are starting to rebirth everybody. So I think that's a thing. So somehow Psylocke is back to her Betsy Braddock body. So again, I haven't finished the last two, so maybe that's what happens in them. But somehow she's back in her Betsy Braddock persona. So in this book, it kind of deals she's back to that. She's kind of dealing with some things. It starts off with the Morgan Le Fay, and something is polluting her well of Avalon. So she goes through, and then it cuts to the Britain and the Braddock Academy, where Megan and Brian Braddock, or the Captain Britain, are they kind of run a school for fairy folk and other people, magic people. And so Betsy's there. She's kind of storing some things there, and they have a little sister brother thing. And finally Betsy goes back to the island, and Apocalypse has been reborn, but he's not Apocalypse anymore. He goes by this weird symbol letter thing. It's like a giant I, an A, and an I. And he's like, "Call me this," and I'm like, I don't even know what that is. It's like Prince, and so don't mess with Jenny. Leave her alone. Yeah, I know. And so Trinary's talking to him, and he's like, "Don't call me Apocalypse. Call me this." So she's like, "I guess I can pronounce that," and I wish I knew how to. So they're talking about this one door that's in, say the island's name.
Krakoa?
Krakoa. So I always pronounce it weird, so I'm going to ask multiple times. So the island of Krakoa has this one door that doesn't open, and they're trying to figure out what it is. And they realize it's kind of something to do with magic more than it does anything else. So they cut to another Morgan Le Fay is trying to infect these people and kind of use these magic users as part of her army. And so she's going to that kind of is like a side note. They do that really quickly. And then Betsy realizes that they birthed her brother, the crazy one, Jamie. So he's the one that can warp reality, and he's kind of like nuts. And so they rebirthed him using all the DNA that they have. And Betsy's like really not happy about this, and so she's like, I'm not telling Brian. We're gonna have to, I need to. Don't go see him yet. Let me build him up. Let me talk to him real quick. So they kind of have like a little thing, and Betsy's kind of irritated. So she goes back, and Brian has to go back to his little Captain Britain, not academy. What's the word I'm looking for? Like their force, like their Captain Britain army. And and Betsy's like, look, it's a trap. We can't get this door to open. Something's blocking it. If you go back, it's gonna be a trap. So they obviously go back, and guess what? It is a trap. And Morgan Le Fay is really irritated because she wants to figure out a way to like, why is her Avalon pool being infected by this plant stuff? Then it brings in Rogue and Gambit, and Rogue is going to try to use her powers to siphon the gate so that they can use the magic to open it on Krakoa. While the meantime, Betsy and Captain Britain are fighting Morgan Le Fay. Morgan Le Fay ends up infecting Brian or Captain Britain and using him against Betsy. And so they're kind of fighting. So they're fighting on one side of the door, and Rogue and Gambit are trying to open it on the other side. Oh, and Apocalypse. So they go through, and when Rogue absorbs the stuff on the door, she ends up going into like this weird plant coma. Like all these plants come around her, and she like goes into this slumber. And meanwhile, Betsy and Brian are fighting because Morgan Le Fay has turned Brian into a bad guy, and then they. Hilarity ensues, and all of a sudden they use Betsy becomes Captain Britain, so she is a Captain Britain, so she's gonna help, save Rogue. Then the epilogue is the small side story where the lady with the witches, she kills all the rest of the coven, and she takes all the powers, and she's like, I'm gonna, don't worry, you're not dead. I'm just using your magic. I needed your abilities, so she siphoned all their power. I think it's kind of cool. However, here's the thing. Art was amazing. I loved the art. The art was really, really good in this. I really liked it. It kind of reminded me of, not RB, this is like a cross between RB Silva and Pepe Larraz. Like, those two, like, they did the Powers of X and House of X. And this one is kind of like if they had a baby and this is the artist. So, like, I really like the art. It's kind of got a little bit...
Who is it? You didn't.
Oh, I just skipped right over it, didn't I? It's because it's in the middle of the book and not in the... it is Tini Howard is the writer, and then Marcus 2 is the artist. So, like I said, like, that's... Marcus
You're
is like...
New man.
Yeah, Marcus is Pepe Larraz's and R.B. Silva's baby. Maybe you guys are like... You guys might want to, like, see if you guys went to the same school or something, because very similar. So they are... but... The story was really good, and I got it. However, some of it was a little bit jumbled. Like, I'm not quite sure... I don't know how to put it. Like, I'm not quite sure the physics of it, like, or the laws of things.
A lot of this new X stuff is a cross between everything that's come before that anyone's ever mentioned, right, and then some stuff that you're supposed to find out as you go along. And my trouble is having problems differentiating which are plot points that they're going to explain later on, and which are points that you should already know this because you read this book that came out 15 years ago.
Well, unlike some of the times when they're like talking about the magic, like the way that the magic, like Apocalypse, when he's talking about the magic, it kind of gets a little convoluted to where I'm not quite sure. Like,
and there are mutants that can control magic, but magic is separate.
Yes.
But then it's
Yes, this is the thing I'm talking about. Like, it's kind of like this own entity, but it's not. And like they talk about witch
like
breeds,
magic,
and then
Ileana.
But she's a mutant. Yeah.
She's got a mutant power, but she's still got magic.
Yes.
And then
same thing. Yes.
Scarlet
exactly
Witch is
a mutant, but she's got a magic.
Not a mutant.
It's chaos.
Yeah.
So this is something similar. Like, there are very weird plot points that I'm not quite sure and then the apocalypse thing, like, or whatever. I really that one really irritated me. Like, just give him a name. Like, I don't care if it's some weird name, but just give him a name. I don't know how to pronounce this thing. Like, in my head, all I can think is like Prince Symbol. I'm like, Symbol. Like, oh, there goes not Apocalypse. It's Symbol, or the mutant formerly known as Apocalypse. Like, I don't know how do you say that? Like, what do you? I don't like that. Like, that was like, and it kind of takes me out of everything because it's just like, he doesn't have a name. Are you serious? So,
well, and he's saying this.
Yeah, I prefer you called me. Meh.
Yeah, that's just come
So,
on, just
all in all, I liked it.
Or
and
do
I'm
it
really
like
excited.
The Simpsons. To pronounce it properly, I would have to rip out your tongue.
Yeah, you are now known as nothing. Like, they need a nickname or something to call him by, because I don't like the fact that he's just not. But anyways, so the stuff like that I kind of got a little lost on. Not that I couldn't catch up, not that I couldn't keep up with the story, not that I didn't understand. It's just those are things that are kind of confusing, and like they keep calling them.
It's like in a movie, something that takes you out of the movie.
Right. When I have to really trying to figure it out.
Yeah, you're into the movie. You're not thinking, oh, I'm watching a movie. And then something happens, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm watching a movie.
Yeah. So I really wish they could have done something a little bit different. But I mean, all in all, I really liked it. I'm really excited about the direction. I wish they would kind of make it a little more clear what's going on, especially when it's magic. I get that it's magic and things are kind of a little like they don't always follow the laws, but I need some kind of delineation of how things work. DC's doing something with like Justice League Dark, and they're kind of rewriting all magic. And so it's in this huge chaos thing, so it's like, well, this might not be possible before, but it was now, or vice versa. And so that kind of makes a little more sense, like, even though there's no set standards or set laws.
Well, like in
it gives
DC, it's the ages of magic,
right.
And each age has different rules.
Exactly, like rules. Like, that's... And so I wish there was a little bit more explanation that they weren't, that they could have done with. But, I mean, all in all, I really liked it. I like the characters. I'm super excited about them. I like the costumes that they all had. I'm not quite sure how Betsy became Betsy, so I'm curious to read about that. And she's no longer in the Koana body. She's no longer the Ninja Betsy. So I'm
Though
curious.
she still looks to have some slight Asian features.
I think that's more the artist than anything, because I mean, like, even
yeah,
maybe she did.
Her hair's still purple,
but she's like, because they keep calling her Psylocke, and she's like, just call me Betsy. So maybe she is still in the Psylocke body. They just they kind of make it out to be like she's in her own body. I don't know. I'm gonna have to figure this out, and I'm hoping it'll explain anyways. But all in all, I would say 4 out of 5 unicorn horns. I'm super excited about this. This will probably be one that I'll keep up with. I'm trying to read all of them to start with each one, and I'm gonna do a video for the other one for Marauders that came out last week. So I'll do a video for that, and I'll let you know my opinion.
There's
on that
6 new number ones.
There's Marauders, Excalibur,
X-Men, New Mutants.
What else was there?
X-Force?
I don't think so. Anyways, but there is a couple of them that I was really excited. Like, they all look like they're going to be kind of fun. No, it's like Fallen Angel. That's one of them.
That's it, yeah.
And then there, yeah. So, anyways. All right, we'll never get through this if I don't shut up. We may only do 2 books of the day.
First
Alan can't shut up
one
talking.
is...
Naked People?
No. I'll save that one for later. We'll do a quick one. We'll do Dark Multiverse, Death of Superman. It's by Jeff Loveness. Brad Walker did pencils. Drew Hennessy and Norm Rapmund did inks, and other people did other things.
Lots of people go into this.
There's it starts with a character. I didn't read the other Dark Multiverse, and I don't know if this is a character that's been seen before, but Tempest Fuginaut. He looks like kind of like I think he's DC's version of the Watcher. He's the guardian against the Dark Multiverse. I bet he was in Dark Knights and stuff. So he's seeing the multiverse, and I guess there's some of them where dark forces have taken over and twisted familiar stories. So he's seeing the story of when Superman died fighting Doomsday, and so Lois finds him after he dies. It's kind of like the original, but she's even more bitter,
distraught
this time. That he died alone, and that where were you, the heroes, and and so she's all torn up. And then the heroes are in the funeral, and she's like, the people who loved you aren't even allowed in the funeral procession. And then at the time of this, Lex Luthor was in like a cloned body, pretending to be the son of Lex Luthor, and that he's pretending to be a good guy at this point, and but while still enriching himself. So she's getting more and more and more depressed, and then she goes and meets the Kents, and she's she just keeps sinking deeper and deeper. So she goes to the Fortress of Solitude, and in the original story, there's the Eradicator was a Kryptonian
clone
force that and he grabbed Superman's body and put him in this revitalizing matrix. Well, in this one he says he's too late, that the body's too far gone, and he can't revive him. And he says, but I've absorbed all this energy, and I have to put it somewhere. And Lois is like, put it in me, give me the energy.
Yeah,
I'll keep on his legacy. And so she gets these powers and becomes Dark Lois. And so she's like, I'm going to make the world better and solve all these problems. Well, so she starts, Superman would help where he was asked. Well, she quit asking. And, get kind of the hero's gone mad. We're gonna give you a better world whether you want it or not. And so she's going after she goes after rich people that profit off of. Anyway, that a social justice warrior with superpowers. So,
she's gonna fix all the things.
She's gonna fix all the things. So she's looking around and seeing all these atrocities. They all have Lex Luthor's initials on it. So she goes to him, and he's he kind of gloating over her like he used to do with Superman. Superman wouldn't cross the line. He was like, well, we got to be able to prove it in court. And Lex would gloat to him and about all these things he'd done, and there's nothing you can do about it. And she's like, I'm not him. And she flies him through the atmosphere at super speed, and he burns up. And she's like, okay, well, now I'm just getting started. So she is hunting down all the supervillains. She finds the Joker and cooks him. And Batman's all angry. What have you done? You crossed that line that we must never cross. And
burn you too.
Yeah, and so she's like, you're a failure. I mean, you fight crime every night, and it's worse than ever. And so they duke it out for a while, and he whips out some kryptonite, and he's fighting her, and so and Batman's thing is he won't ever quit, and she's like, well, if you won't quit, I'll make you quit, and she cooks him, and so she's and apparently this happened pretty quick, because in the original story, the 4 new Supermen come out. It's like a month or so after Superman's died.
Yeah, John Henry, the Cyborg, Superboy, and
the Eradicator, who gave her his powers, so he won't be around. So the other 3 come in, and she's like, well, I don't need to worry about Steel and Superboy because they're just faint shadows. And she already knows that Cyborg is a bad guy. So she starts fighting him, and he's like, well, if my secret's out, I don't have to hide it, and I don't have to hold back. So he starts taking over technology and fighting her, and Superboy and Steel come to her rescue, and the Cyborg ends up killing both of them, and so she fights Cyborg more and more, and then the people are getting hurt in the fallout of the battle, and then Superman, who just needed a little while longer to recover, shows up, and he just wasn't quite done yet. And so he shows up to save the bystanders, and so Lois comes up and confronts him, and Superman notices that everybody's afraid of Lois because she's been changing the world. And not in a good way. Well, that gave Hank Henshaw enough time to craft a super weapon, and he hits them both with kryptonite. Well, she survives because she's half human. He was already weak, so he dies again, and so she becomes more and more vengey, and they leave the rest to your imagination. And so the guy's like, and another world falls to darkness.
Dun, 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 dun.
Dun, dun, dun. So, and then it says the next one's going to be the Blackest Night. Because that was a happy-go-lucky story, from the beginning. Yeah.
So is the Dark Multiverse, is it just like Elseworld books?
It's like What If.
What Ifs.
What if this
Superman, yeah.
And they're all the first one was
the Batman one.
Yeah, the Batman when he at the same because it came out at the same time as the Superman one. Batman got his back broken by Bane, and Azrael took over, and in this one, Batman isn't able to beat Azrael to take the mantle of Batman back, and so.
So what about art and rating? Art was really
the
cool.
art was good. The story was pretty simplistic. It was a fun enough read, but I mean they weren't crossing any new ground. This story's been done before. I'd give it a 2.5, maybe a 3 horns.
Okay, fair enough. I'm going to do Relics of Youth. It is written by Matt Nicholas, Chad Rebman, and the art is by Skylar Patridge. So I did, I think I did Relics of Youth, number 1. One of us did. I can't remember who it was, but one of us did. Where the kids have the tattoos, and they're trying to go to this mysterious island, and they find out that they're kind of these people that need to be these avatars of like of this island. So they are looking for. The girl goes back and she's trying to get everybody together, and she's like, "Look, we got to go to this temple. We got to figure this out." And everybody's like, "No, I'm done. There's pirates on the island. Stuff's happening. It's not okay. We need to get out of here." So as they're trying to escape, the pirates are coming up on the island, and they're trying to get out of there. But as they go along, they kind of separate with each other because they fight. There's infighting, and everybody's getting on everybody's nerves, and everybody's done. And so, they're all different walks of life. Yeah, it's kind of is. Like, the one girl's like, "I'm over this," and so she's trying to get away. And so they have the different personalities clash, and so they all kind of tend to separate. While they separate, things start happening, and they start figuring out that they have some kind of abilities. So one is kind of a mimic of animals, and so he gets really fast, so he flies through the forest, and he gets these cheetah claws. And then one girl is controls plants, so they kind of fight off these undead conquistadors that come alive, and they're skeletons, and they come and they attack them. While as they're being attacked, they start finding out more and more. One girl turns invisible. One guy, he kind of disintegrates things, he keeps turning things into sand. One guy ends up being kind of a telekinetic, or it almost looks like a sonic blast, but later on they explain to him about I just shoved everybody away, and so it seems like to be more of a telekinetic thing. And he's the one with cancer, so he finally has this big reveal with the girl, and he's like, "Hey, I'm dying of cancer." The bad guys are finding all the stuff that they need to find. They're like, "We're getting close," and they finally reveal that they're looking for the Fountain of Youth. And so I think that's what these characters are going to try to protect, is the Fountain of Youth, so that it doesn't fall into the bad guys' hands. They're going to be charged with this. So as they're going, two of the characters get kidnapped by the pirates, and there's two other ones that are kind of running around trying to figure out where they're at, and they find the city they were looking for, and all of a sudden spears are around their throats, so they're not quite sure, but they don't show who they get kidnapped by. And then the other couple, the guy with cancer and the kind of gothy girl that kind of got everybody together, are in this temple, and they are doing their little connecting thing where they're like, "Oh, he's like, I'm dying," and she goes, "But I love you anyways." And so hilarity ensues, and they try to kiss, but she's like, "No, I hear something." So they find all these symbols on the wall, and each of the symbols are kind of representing what the tattoos that they have, and they realize that they are kind of supposed to be these guardians of this thing, but they don't quite figure out what exactly it is. They think it's supposed to be the Fountain of Youth, but they haven't gotten that far to where they actually find anything. And then it ends with the pirates getting ready to the lead pirate girl's find the rest of them. I want all of them kidnapped. I want them alive. Let's do this. And he goes, "All right." So he walks in, and the two kids that they captured earlier on the beach, he's like, "You're going to tell me what's going on, or I'm going to kill you." But he can't kill them, but they don't know that, so. Anyways, I assume he's going to interrogate them at some point. But it's... So, I don't know quite how to feel about this book. I don't hate it, and I don't love it. I'm just kind of very indifferent about it. It's just a story. I'm curious to see where it's going to go, but there's something kind of flat about it, but I can't quite put my finger on it. It's not... I can't say, this is why I don't like it, or this is why it's kind of flat for me. This is why it's just a book, and the art's decent, the story's okay, the dialogue's okay. I'm just not for sure if it's maybe it's me. That's always a possibility. And maybe I'm burned out on this kind of stuff, but for some reason this doesn't resonate highly with me. But it's not bad. Like I said, the art's fairly decent, the story's fairly decent, the dialogue's fairly good, the art's pretty, and it's just everything's okay. But that's what it is it's just okay. And so I don't know if I need it to rev up and kind of get there, or if I'm not quite sure what they need to do to get past, for me to get past it. I'll definitely try to read number 3 and see if it gets any better. But I think that's maybe what I'm hoping for. I maybe if they had started with these establishing the premise of the book, then went to the character, the character moments. But I think they've kind of done opposite, where they've done these character moments where they've kind of bonding the characters and telling, giving them their little shtick and their little place in the world, and then the characters bond with each other, and then now that this book 2, they're kind of feeling, they're like, oh, now they got powers, but we're still gonna have these character moments, and so I wish maybe that's what it is. I don't know. I sadly cannot put my finger on what is going on with me, but for some reason it just doesn't resonate well with this book. So it's definitely middle of the road. 3 out of 5 unicorn horns. I don't hate it. I don't love it. It's just a book. So check it out. I mean, it's worth a check out and see what you think of it. And
who's it by? What
it's
company?
I think it's Vault, but I may be wrong. No, I'm right. Vault Comics. Which Vault I feel like is a
kind of
independent-y.
Yeah, they're.
I mean, like it's not a really
kind of
huge
coming on.
Yeah, they've got a couple ones that I think we've reviewed a couple times. But all in all, like I said, it's not bad. It's just I'm just very indifferent for it. So I'm not like, oh my god, you got to read this book. I'm like, it's okay.
Okay. So my
Yeah.
Okay. My next book is The Last God. It's on DC's Black Label. It's book 1 of the Fellspire Chronicles. I don't know if this is based on novels or...
Keep going.
What?
Nothing. I have a really bad opinion about this. Go for it.
It's by Philip Kennedy Johnson, Richard Federici, and Sonny Go with Dean White. And so it's kind of a sword and sorcery take on your typical story like that. It starts with talking about the myths of the world, and there was a plague of the plague of flowers. It was a monster that turned anyone it fought into these
zombies.
Well, but there was also vines coming out of them, and like they call there's elves, but their elves start with the letter Aelvan, and so things are typical fantasy tropes, but slightly different.
Mm-hmm.
So there was, I think it's 5 or possibly 6 heroes. That there's these the Black Staircase.
There's a place apparently.
Yeah, and it basically it went up and out of reality into a void type area, and that's where the bad guys were coming from. So these heroes went up the thing, and then the lead hero is named Tyr, and he fought the god monster and defeated him, and they crowned him the king of all the lands. So it's like 20-30 years later, and they do annual festival commemorating their victory, and they have gladiators playing both parts and reenacting this battle, but it's not just a play, they actually fight, and because like people can get killed, and so the hero, most of the heroes are watching this, not all of them showed up, and there's people throwing some shade about, well, the queen couldn't be bothered to come, and so the gladiator who's playing the king is winning, is beating everybody, but they notice he doesn't kill the people that he beats. I guess that's unusual.
Well, he's a gladiator, so he should be killing his.
But he can choose not to.
Right.
He's not.
Right.
So he wins, and he's won 60 battles, and that's supposed to grant you your freedom. So, right as he wins, the king starts feeling ill and leaves real quick, and the queen's like, we'll go ahead without him. And the king goes off, and they allude there's a deep secret, and you start to realize that he's been infected by the darkness that he supposedly slew. And is that the proper tense? Slew?
I think so.
To slay?
Slowen.
Slowinated. He slowinated. So the gladiator is being recognized by these people, and they're getting ready to free him. And this part kind of confused me, but the queen sees his ear.
Just that part?
She sees his ear, and there's something about his ear. I don't know if it was a prophecy, or if he's, because like the elves have the pointy ears, and it's a little pointy, but anyway, she sees his ear,
off.
and she's like, return him to the slave barracks. And they're like, but he won 60 victories, and he's like, he's gonna have to win 60 more to get free. So they screw him over.
But he doesn't care. Like he's this is kind of his life, and he's fine with it. So he doesn't, like, he's like nonchalant about it. He's like, whatever.
Yeah. So then there's some revelry people are singing this song, and the king comes out and infects them all with the thorn plague, but then you see the people again. I don't know if this is different people. This part confused me. But so they flip to the gladiator and one of his buddies, and his buddy's pissed that he didn't get free.
They allude that they're together, but then I don't know. Like, it's like you can't. Like, the way they use words is it could mean that he was like his best friend, or that they were like lovers.
Yeah.
But there's really not a clear, concise one way or the other.
Yeah, I took it that they were just, the two toughest guys, and they were buds.
I took it as they were like lovers, because at one point he says like, "You're my favorite," or "You were my one true mate," or something like that. Can't remember what he said. I'd have to find it. You keep talking. I'm gonna find it, and I'll tell you exactly what it says.
So, as they're, it says, "I love you, mate." And, is it
like mate, like Australian,
mates, or
Australian?
I might, I love you, mate.
Yeah, I love you, mate.
So the secondary character is talking bad about the queen, and the guy that the winner was like, if you say bad things about the queen, I'm gonna punch your teeth down your throat. So he, like you said, he doesn't care. So then they come across this beggar who's wanting to sell them puppies, and then the puppies are like disintegrating in front of them, and then
it's like a bad omen.
And then there's a dog that's eating the puppies.
But they have like a disease to them, like they're dying.
Yeah,
they're dead.
And then they're singing the Oodalay song. There's something about the Oodalay song. There's this Oodalay song, and there's a thing in the back about the song, and I'm like, what is the deal with the song? Anyway, so then they notice that the palace is on fire, and they tell the slaves, if you help us fight the fire, we'll give you a gold piece. And so they're going up to fight the fire, and one of the one of the heroes that wasn't at this festival shows up, and she's all dark menace and says that where's the king? The palace is on fire, and she's like, he'll be with us soon. And then he comes in the guise of the monster, and so they start fighting the zombie plant monsters, and so
they finally found the queen. They keep looking for the queen. They finally found the queen, and she's getting ready to fight. She's fighting the king monster.
Yeah.
Tyr as the plant monster.
Yeah. So.
Okay. So tell me what.
And then there's a whole big thing about the Oodalay song, which if I come to singing, like even in Tolkien, when I know that is blasphemy to not read the songs and stuff in Tolkien, but I just skipped over that part because I'm not very musically bent. So the art was very nice. I liked it. It was, on one hand, it's kind of a typical sword and sorcery story. It's a little confusing. I see where they're going with it. I got the broad strokes. Some of the subtle in-between stuff I didn't get, but I figure I'll either get it as it picks up or it won't be important. And I'm a little confused as to who some of the characters are. And that's usually it's either the art is bad and you can't tell who the characters are, but in this one, the art's good, and I still can't tell who they are because people look kind of alike, and so
especially the races, like like the elven kind of race, they all look like the same elf.
Yeah,
Avlin or Avlin.
And then there's
Avlin.
Different, all the non-human races have pointy ears, and so I can't tell who this is. Which of the original heroes that this is?
I can't help you.
So, but I liked it. I want to read more. I'd probably give it a 3 horns. It's like I was saying, I got the broad strokes, and I figure they'll either fill in the minor strokes or they won't be important. So
I was so annoyed by this book because even the dialogue uses words that you don't know, and it's like another kind of like you're supposed to know these things, but you don't know. Push him off because he's so frustrating. But it was really convoluted. Like I feel like the story that they were trying to, even the broad strokes was very convoluted and very hard to follow. You really had to think about it and you had to go back and forth, and it was really not clear. And a lot of it was not clear because they used these words that were not usually used. And so you're sitting
They're
there
trying to separate themselves from the elf and dwarf and all this stuff. So they slightly changed the name, but then they use the same tropes. It's like, either change it all the way or don't change it.
Some of the names were really, really super convoluted and super elaborate. And I get that it's supposed to be this, this other world, but like it's really confusing because I can't. When they refer to the character later on in the books, I can't tell who they are. I have to go back and figure it out. It's super annoying. The art is gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. But just like James said, half the time I can't tell who's who because they look all the same. So like there's characters they bring up and they're like they even say their name and I'm like I don't know who that is. Like I wish they would have maybe established it a little bit differently. Like I feel like there should have been more books before I got to this book. Like I feel like they should have the first series should have been maybe the heroes before he became king. Like if they would have done one issue where they were it shows those heroes fighting the people, and then later on they maybe like the next I was so confused and so lost. Not on all of it, like you said, like I got the very broad story, but a lot of the intricacies I feel like I'm completely lost and I just don't understand, and that really is annoying to me because it's like I really wanted to be in, you know, I want to be in your book and I want to enjoy it, but I can't figure it out. And when I have to when I have to actually figure it out, you've gone too far. Like that's not. I mean, and like you said, like there's like 4 pages of dialogue writing talking about like the world and the thing, and I'm like, if you can't do that in your own book, why? I'm not gonna read a book to read your book to read a book. It's just.
And I don't know if it was based on. It feels like it's based on a set of novels.
Yeah, it feels like there should be some kind of source material.
If it's an adaptation, then that would make sense.
But still, I feel like number 1, like you should like they. It just was really difficult. I don't know if I will read number 2. I probably will just to see if I can try to pick it up. But a lot of it, if it continues down this road, I can't. It's just frustrating and it irritates me. I really wanted to be on board because, like I said, I kind of liked this world and the art was really beautiful and it was really pretty to look at, and like there was, I mean, you know, it was. I just couldn't understand what was going on sometimes. Like you said with the weird dogs, the lady giving the dogs away was confusing. Like, were they friends? That was confusing. Like, it just was. There was just a lot of things that was like, I don't even know who's who, what's what's going on. Broad strokes, and that's about it, unfortunately. So. All right. We're long-winded today. We're already like almost an hour. All right, I'm going to do Roku number 1, Valiant. It is written by Colin Bunn, and art was Ramon F. Box. Apparently Colin Bunn is all about the Valiant. He must be one of their big wigs. Yeah.
But he's been doing
books for a long time, but I mean, like, he's done a lot of their new stuff. So this is kind of a very basic assassin story. Like, you know, she's kind of somewhat telekinetic, so she can read minds and she can telekinetically use her hair as a weapon, kind of like a Medusa character. But she's an assassin, so she goes in, kills a bunch of people. Hilarity ensues. Then she's assigned to go for this one mission that she's like, no, I don't want to go on it. And they're like, I'll give you lots of money. She goes, okay. So she goes on this one mission. She meets her contact, kills a bunch of people, and they're trying to figure out she's like, what am I looking for? And she's like, I don't know. We'll know when we see it. And so nobody really knows what's going on. So she's going through, and then they realize that there's another assassin there, and she can turn invisible, and she has like psychic blockers so that the lady can't. So they fight, and she kind of gets the better of Roku, and but then Roku uses her mind powers, and she's like, you can't control me, and she goes, I didn't call you, and so like all the guards that were on the outside, she used them as kind of like cannon fodder, so she sent them after that girl while she ran and tried to find the package, and then they find the package, and it's this little girl. That's where it ends. It's just a story. Like, I mean, it's almost, I say a lot for Zenescope. Valiant is kind of the same way, or at least this one. It's a story. It's got good art. It's got some fun characters. It's nothing super great. Honestly, I was a little bored with it. A lot of it, there was a lot of fighting in it, and which was cool, but I feel like sometimes the art was a little weird because the way her hair looks, it's like, I don't know. It's like it's like she's got long hair in parts, straight. I got confused. So sometimes that was a little weird, and her contact. So she goes to this hotel, and like the contact is just this really weird interaction. Like, if that was your contact, like I don't know. It's like she's I don't even know how to explain it. Like, it's the weirdest spy thing you would ever have. Like Roku's just walking up, and all of a sudden this girl's like on the couch, and she's like, psst, psst, I'm your contact. And like, what? Who says that? Like, you have like a secret word or something like that? You can't text her? Like, I don't know. That part was a little weird. Because then next thing you know, they're like best buddies, and like there's one like where she says something, she goes, "What, you don't trust me already?" And I'm like, she just met you like 2 pages ago. Like, I wouldn't trust you either. I don't know you. Like I just met you a page ago. Like that was kind of weird. So
no, I don't.
Yeah, exactly. No, I have no idea. I don't know who you are. So some of it was a little weird. I'm curious to where they're gonna go with this. Like I didn't read about the character. She was apparently in the is it Ninjak series by Valiant, and she was one of the ninjas that they made. So she was actually.
What book did you read this week?
God reads them all with me because he's the favoriteest man kitty ever. So I don't know. Like I kind of wish this would have done a little bit more. But like I said, it was just a good story or an okay story. It was okay. Dialogue. Some of it was a little convoluted and weird, but middle of the road. I'd actually probably give it a little less than middle of the road because there was some like I said, like her meeting her contact is kind of just weird, and so maybe 2.5 stars instead of 3. But all in all, it is what it is. So we'll see how it goes. I'll probably end up reading more of it because as much as I say that I'll never read the next book, I always end up reading them again anyways.
Okay. So our last book is Basket Full of Heads by Joe Hill and art by Leo Max. I don't know why that is all one word, but anyway, it's another DC Black Label, and I guess DC is giving Hill his own sub group, Hill House. So he's the same one that did Lock and Key, which I loved. So
that makes more sense now, actually. That just clicked in. Thank you.
So it starts out with a person with an axe walking across a bridge with a basket, and things in the basket are talking to each other, and you assume from the title of the book that it's heads. So they and a driver sees them and says, "What have you got in the basket?" And then that's the end of the prelude. So then it flips back many years before. It's set in Maine in the 80s. Imagine Stephen King's son writing about something that happens in Maine. So
it's always about the Maine.
So it's this boy and his girlfriend. The boy has been working the summer as a sheriff's deputy, and he's the summer's over, and so his job's over. He's going back to school, you guess. I assume it's kind of like a resort town that shuts down after summer's over. So he and this girl are she seems like she's more the free spirit than him, and so they're driving back to town and flirting back and forth, and they're talking about pooling their money and buying a car together, and hanging out, and so just a lot of banter back and forth. It's not really super important.
It's just establishing their relationship, I think, more than anything, and like establishing like how he operates in the world, like how he's part of the sheriff but not quite.
He's kind of a junior deputy, and he talks about some of the things that he saw work in the summer. the bridge that she was on that he originally saw. He talks about people that jump off of it, and he said like one person had jumped off with a bunch of rocks in their pockets so they'd sink, but they didn't need to because they hit the shore and went splat. And he was going to quit that night because he couldn't take it, and the sheriff told him, he wouldn't accept his resignation for the very reason that this affected him, that he was going to be a good cop because he had empathy. And so as they're driving, they come across a prison work truck, and the cops have a bunch of prisoners at gunpoint, and it turns out there's been a prisoner escape, that 4 of them have gotten away. And so the kid who's his deputy job was ended, but he puts the uniform back on, and we're gonna need you a little while longer, kid. So the sheriff, who's kind of a good old boy, and the mayor are going back and forth on these escaped prisoners, and the sheriff's not too worried about it. He said these are a bunch of idiots.
Well, they didn't really have a lot of one was a marijuana possession, one was did something stole something.
There's 2 dope heads, a drunk, and a guy who pimped out his daughters from the back of his laundromat.
Yeah.
And he's like, ain't none of them exactly the Boston Strangler. And then the mayor's like, I have daughters, and this guy was pimping daughters, and so we need to be protected from him. And
because the sheriff's kind of I don't, they're not super violent crimes, so they should be,
we'll catch them eventually. And the mayor's like, we can't have criminals running around this town. So he... the sheriff sends the kid back to keep an eye on his wife with these criminals running around town, and the deputy kid says, well, your son's there, can he keep her safe? And the sheriff's like, no.
Yeah.
So the deputy shows up, and the sheriff of a small town in Maine must pay really well, because that is quite the spread.
Yeah.
They
don't really say what she does either. The wife is kind of, and they kind of allude that she's kind of a
socialite.
Well, not only that, but she takes no prisoners. She's just kind of she's very a strong-willed person. She's somebody that will get things done, and so
a force of nature.
Yeah.
And the son's a fop.
Yeah.
So there's some more banter between the deputy and the wife and the son, and then you see they had the weapons collection, and there's
all these ancient artifacts,
Norse stuff, and there's a Norse axe. Well, as they walk by the axe kind of lights up and empowers, and then you remember back to the prequel, the person with the basket was holding that axe. So the axe is
foreshadowing, maybe.
So they're out having dinner, and the sheriff calls and says that there was the escaping prisoners killed. They didn't kill this guy, but
there was a fatality.
They were trying to steal his boat, and when the guy was trying to stop them, he fell and hit his head.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
So it's almost he died. Bless you, bless
Excuse
you.
me.
So he
Okay.
died, but it wasn't directly from the.
They didn't kill him.
They didn't kill him. He died though.
But it's still felony murder.
So the wife's got to go and talk to the family, and that's kind of her role. They kind of established that that's kind of her role, is to help with help give the word to the family. So
Yeah. So she's gonna go talk to the families, and they said, keep yourself safe. They keep talking about the keys to the gun safe or the
code to
the
gun.
code.
Yeah.
That's come up several times, so it's going to be important. So then there's a storm coming in, and the lights go out, and the two kids start hearing a noise in the house, and so they're going to run and hide, and then you see that the two of the escapees are in the
house.
sheriff's house with them. So, and
He looks just like his dad too.
yeah, and then there's a backup story.
But I'm not for sure if that was by the same person. I think that was by wasn't it by?
Well, the script is Joe Hill. Yeah. It's
Okay.
a different artist.
But is it a backup story? Or is it for a different book? Like I think it might be for a different book. Is it?
I
not?
think it's just a different.
Okay.
It's just another story in this. That I think they're going off the old horror books,
anthologies, yeah.
and they had backup stories in them.
What? Lay down.
So
You're making me look bad.
this guy's talking to it's a kind of Revolutionary War type period, and
They're on a boat.
and they're on a boat, and they're in the hold of the boat, and they put all these animals down there, and the animals have been killed and eaten, and the guy's talking about how the one guy's like, well, how is the British Navy gonna stop the Revolutionary War? He says they're a navy, and this is a continent, and the guy says, well, we can't get any supplies, and any town that does get supplies, the Britons send this HMS Havoc in, and is it Havoc?
It's what?
Yeah, it's
some
the
kind of
Havoc,
general, yeah.
and it's like this big tough boat, and they basically anybody that helps the revolutionaries, this boat comes in and makes them wish that they were dead. So this guy's like, well, we need to take this boat down, and he said they'll just build another unless we make it so horrific that they fear to redo it. And so he alludes that the creatures in the hold of this boat are werewolves or hellhounds or some kind of thing. He's gonna turn them loose on this boat and destroy it. So the main story, the basketball, I like the dialogue. I like the setup. They're taking their time introducing everything. They're not just jumping right into it. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, but I also wasn't bored. Like, I wasn't bored with
exactly.
it. Like, I didn't think it was, like, a boring interaction. It was kind of like like you said, like, the dialogue was actually kind of fun and interesting. I like the characters, even though
it was all set up,
Yeah.
and not much happened, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And that's unusual.
And I even liked even the characters were kind of they weren't like original. Like, I feel like they've been done before. Like the small town and the small the mayor was very like a certain kind of stereotype, and the sheriff, and then but there was like little subtleties that still made them kind of interesting, and I'm kind of curious to see where they're going to go with it, because it was really I liked the way that they interacted, so it was kind of fun. I'm curious to see So I'm the same way. I was like, it's weird that there wasn't much happened, but I was like, well, it's not bad. And then when you said it was Lock and Key, I was like, yeah, Joe Hill for some reason. There's something, the way he writes is just intriguing, and the way he has the interactions is usually pretty good. So hopefully, knock on wood, that they will.
He inherited a lot of talent from his dad, and I'm sure that his.
But I also feel like
he does have his own voice. He's not just mimicking it.
And I feel like he has a better editing than his dad. His dad is very, very wordy and very descriptive. And I feel like Joe Hill, I don't know if it's because of the medium that he's using or what, but I feel like he definitely has a more editing eye than his father, to where he creates these interesting characters, but doesn't like sit there and have to explain everything to you. So, yeah, I liked him, but I'm always a fan of Joe Hill so far.
I'm surprised that Hollywood has not nabbed him up.
Maybe he doesn't translate well into something else, but I mean...
Well, but I mean...
I don't know.
Comics translate well into...
Yeah.
So...
I mean, like, Lock and Key should have been a movie, like...
Well, it's gonna be.
TV show for... It should have been a TV show a long time ago, though.
Yeah.
It's really good. So, yeah. I give it 4 out of 5 unicorn horns. I really enjoyed it, surprisingly.
4.5.
Yeah.
I can't wait for the next one of this.
Yeah.
That they mentioned a bunch of other stuff that this Hill House imprint. I think they're trying to replace Vertigo or just lock Joe Hill in because he's so good that he can sell a lot of comics.
Hopefully, yeah. I really liked it so far, so I'm curious to see where they're going to go with that. All right. If you can, like, share, and subscribe. We would love to hear from more people. If you get a chance, shoot us a comment. We would love to see if there's books that we're not reading that maybe we need to look into, or if you have a comment about anything that we've talked about today. Maybe you have a different opinion on each book. We'd love to hear that too, because some of these are... it's just our opinion, but we would love to hear other opinions and see, start a conversation. It's always my goal. But until then, like, share, subscribe, ring the bell, and then we will see you next week, and hopefully your pull list will be full. Bye!